આપી
નહીં એ પછી આપીશું છેલ્લે લાસ્ટ. Today is the last day in Switzerland. It is morning 7 o'clock, 7:30.
આમાં 3 દિવસ જ છે સ્વિટ્ઝરલેન્ડમાં.
હે 3 દિવસ? હા 3 રાત જ થઈ ને.
જુદી હતી એક હોટલમાં
એટલે એ સારામાં સારી હોટેલ હતી અને પછી ખરાબમાં ખરાબ.
આજે ના
Chotu having breakfast, the continental breakfast. This is the breakfast with all good things here.
વાદળ કેટલા નીચે છે. વાદળ ખૂબ નીચે છે.
વાદળ બાજુ ઝૂમ કરો.
વાદળ કેટલા નીચે છે દેખાય છે ને. અમારા કરતા નીચે છે, રસ્તા ઉપર છે. નીચે બ્યુટીફુલ હાઉસીસ.
There are very rare instances. I'm not trying to scare you or something. It normally does not happen, but it is always better to be, cautious about certain things which could happen. What I normally get scared of, because at night when everybody is in the room, probably I go out just for a smoke, but then too I do not leave the place.
So in our country, you will get a visa, the passport and all, everything will be cleared, and then he is free to enter Europe. That's a window for Europe. So the police is also a part of the system. So that's first thing. So when I was walking and I reached the old civilization place, and I thought, let me have a photograph. No, I kept one leg on the wall side.
Is Rome, as we all know. Language spoken, Italian. Now Italian has got many different dialects. When I say dialects, in Maharashtra, in Mumbai, people speak different Marathi. In Kolhapur, they add a little bit of intonation to their Marathi. Same way, when we go to different parts of our India, you speak same language, but the dialects are different. Then Rome, so Romans. So the religion followed over here is Roman Catholic. Almost 90% of people follow Roman Catholic religion. Like we have 29 states, which is going to be 30. Here they have 20 regions. They have 20 regions. Do we know who is the president of Italy? It's Giorgio Napolitano. Again a O.
सोनिया गांधी है
Next president will be Sonia Maino.
हाँ सोनिया माइनो
Italy is the fourth largest visited country in Europe, with around 40 million visitors each year. First is Paris, France. No, I don't know about second, third. First is France.
जो जाते જ ભરવાનું પેટ્રોલ જાતે ભર્યું, બંધ કર્યું, સેલ્ફ સર્વિસ.
પછી પૈસા આપી દે.
An entire bottle. Do you see that Torino written on the left hand side on the map, on the indications? So so basically that road which leads to Vicenza is there is a town. I will tell you the name of the town where Sonia Gandhi was from.
स्विस बैंक तो दिखाया नहीं हमको.
She was from the Torino region.
हाँ बोला नहीं.
हाँ,
स्विस बैंक दिखाया नहीं, बोलो जोशी को.
अभी तो स्विट्जरलैंड तो गया.
अभी नहीं मांगता हम लोग.
So do you know the real name of Sonia Gandhi?
Sonia Maino.
It's Edwige Antonia Albina Maino.
पार्ट करके रखा है.
It's a big name.
जोशी तुम्ही स्विस बँक दाखवली नाही आम्हाला. अंडरग्राउंड ऐसे
हाँ, वो नीचे बैठा हुआ.
वो किधर से दिखाएंगे. इधर जरा पर्वत कम हो गए हैं. इधर मार्बल अच्छा मिलता है.
I must.
You see that? That's how it comes from mountain.
करारा मार्बल की खांड।
मुझे तो लंबे से आई सी लगा हो।
हाँ, लिटरली पत्थर खांड डाला है। हमारे यहाँ भी ऐसा ही किया है हिमाचल में। करारा मार्बल की खांड। Will take us to Pisa. Pisa. Double bus.
हमारी टूर पर सिद्धि आ सकती That time you said 12 euros. No. You said 12 euros. Hello. Where I want?
Pisa. એવું મૂર્તિ ફૂર્તિ તો કોઈ દિવસ લેવી જ નહીં ભૂલતી, પરાણે હાચવીને રાખવી પડે, પછી ફેંકીએ ન
અંદર તળિયો રાખ્યો
હે
હાથની નીચે રાખ્યો
હા અંદર છે ટેકો આપડા બહુ પાછળ છે
લે તો લીધું તો સારું થયું
હા આપણે હું જવાનું છું હા આપણે બે તો પછી
Okay. So is everybody here?
Yes.
I think almost. Mr. Bori, please listen. The time in my watch right now is 2:20. Before I give you the time, let me tell you, if you want to buy anything, I'm giving you the exact time to come. I don't want to, cut short some time and, tell you come quickly, we'll go. I don't want to save time because we have time. So I want to give you exact time.
Don't save
So
time here.
it's 2:20 right now. Everybody will be back at 3:20.
1 hour
3:20 in this place. I will be.
बस हमारे साथ ही रहना अभी हमको देखते रहना गुम मत जाना
आप
तुम
ऊपर जाओगे ना
हाँ
ऊपर जाके जो सामान यहाँ मिल रहा है वो वहाँ पे भी मिलता है
ચલો અહીંયાથી ફોટો પાડી
अच्छा अच्छा
એવું જ લાગે છે
बोलना पड़ जाओ
જા ને
I'm not going ऊपर
ठीक है ओके चलो बंद चल ने
I thought she gave you one for 2.
ચલ ચલ
Chilling. Could you please look at before you cause all that alarm?
No problem. Absolutely.
હું આ બાજુ
चलो टिकट क्या है टिकट लेवानी थी
હા આમે પાછો પાંચ માટે બાકી છે
ये अपना चटाई जो कहीं करते
From where to buy tickets?
Outside on the left.
But the lady said 57 because
જોજો નીચે જોઈને ચાલજો દશરથ ઘણું ઊંચું જો આગળ શોપ છે બહુ ચિત્ર રાખી હા હા અહીંયા ટિકિટ
પછી જજો એકથી વધારે
એમાં પાછા એમ થશે કે મેં કીધું ને તમે ન કહો
નીચે નીચે મોટો છે દેખો કદાચ આવો ત્રીજો છે ઓલા માણસો ઉભા ને ત્યાં બેલ ટાવર એમ જ કીધું ઘંટા પટ્ટાસ તો કાલનું આઈ ત્યાં કેવું છે
es catedral por más bonita que
Okay, we're almost all here, so hi, welcome to Florence. My name's Mike. I think we've decided I'm your guide. Yeah. So hi. Hi. Right. This city, Florence, is mainly famous for the Renaissance a cultural revolution which happens 500 years ago. It separates the European Middle Ages from the modern period, and is mainly famous for its artists. So, okay, it's going to be more difficult. Right behind the bus, there are tall, thin candlelight trees. You'll see them in a second. That was a garden which was much bigger, belonged to the Medici family, the rulers of Florence throughout the Renaissance. They had their garden there, they had their collection of statues. That's where they sent Michelangelo, Europe's most famous artist ever, between 14 and 17 to copy the statues. That's Michelangelo's school. So Michelangelo, the famous artist, went to school there. Michelangelo's elder brother was a monk inside this monastery. Down at the end of the street, there's the monastery which made the colors for Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel in Rome. So the Sistine Chapel is the most famous painting in Europe. It's in Rome, but it started just up the street, and there are 7 statues by Michelangelo in this ex-convent behind you. So in this parking lot, lots of Michelangelo. And a little bit of Leonardo da Vinci. So Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, the most famous artist of the Renaissance. Beginning of the 16th century, Leonardo da Vinci had a workshop right inside there. So that's the period when Leonardo da Vinci almost certainly started the Mona Lisa. We don't know if Mona Lisa was in there, but Leonardo da Vinci certainly was. And that's just a parking lot. Everywhere in Florence you'll be surrounded by those famous artists. But right now I'm going to get us to the end of the street, a green and white building, the Cathedral of Florence, 14th century. So let's get down to the good stuff, end of the street.
Please, we want to see from front.
I'm sorry, 1 second. Sorry. I think I'm being asked about the statue. Listen, Florence is filled with important statues. That one's not important. Oh. That's a 19th century statue by somebody called Pio Fedi. Have you ever heard of him?
No.
Nobody ever has. It's of somebody called Massimiliano Fanti. Ever heard of him? No, no. He was a minister of warfare when Florence was briefly capital city of Italy. It's not one of the famous things. Let's stick to the famous things. And on the sponsors of the Renaissance. The Medici family will eventually have 2 popes in their family, 2 heads of the Catholic Church, and 2 queens of France. The 4 bankers from Florence in the 15th century are eventually kings of France. And the 3 times the Medici family were thrown out of Florence, it was their influence as queens of France and popes which got them back into power. They ruled Florence until the mid-18th century. They ended up with 3 palaces in Florence. This was the first one. Sponsors of the Renaissance, number 1, they gave, so Michelangelo runs away from home at 13 to become an artist. He quits his first job as a painter when he's 14. He's homeless, he's out of a job. He was given a room inside here. He grew up here from 14 to 17 with the Medici family. It was the Medici family who sent Leonardo da Vinci to Milan, where he did his famous Last Supper. Those balls on the shield, Galileo knew all about them. When Galileo saw the moons of Jupiter, he called them the Medici moons because they resembled the balls of the Medici family. I think you'll agree with me, and a very important symbol, one of the most important symbols in Florence. But I'd like us to get to the end of the street, the cathedral. Let's head down this way. Okay, so we've arrived at the cathedral. Cathedral just means, it's going to remind you of Pisa a little bit, yeah? So it's a little bit like Pisa because of the green, white, and red marble, which represent faith, hope, and charity, the virtues that get you into heaven. So the entire cathedral is a message about how to get into heaven. But even though it looks like Pisa, this was started 200 years after the Cathedral of Pisa. So Pisa's cathedral is Romanesque, so lots of rounded arches, columns with galleries behind. Here instead, Gothic style 200 years later, pointed arches leading you up towards God. 200 years after the Cathedral of Pisa, but based on the plan of the Cathedral Square of Pisa. Right. It's known as the Cathedral. It just means cathedra, throne, throne of the bishop's church. So this is the church of the head priest. The head priest in a Roman Catholic church is the bishop, so the head priests are finished in the 15th century, Renaissance. So finished in the Renaissance, Gothic at the front, pointed arches. At the back you have a dome which is inspired by Roman buildings such as the Pantheon, Renaissance, so looking back at the Roman past, Gothic moving into Renaissance, and 140 years to build it. So great-great-great-grandfather starts it, and then you see it finished. 14th century built, which was a really bad time to build the biggest church in the world. When this was built, it was the biggest church in the world. Right, why? Because Florence, when this was started, was a little bit bigger than London. Florence was a city of roughly 100,000 people, one of the biggest cities in Western Europe when this was started. Florence was one of the richest cities in Western Europe. England and France sent the raw wool to Italy to be dyed, made into cloth. It was the wool makers of Florence who built this cathedral. So it's an expression of the wool makers' power and wealth, 14th century. And it's a bad time to build the biggest church in the world. Mid-14th century, 1348, one-third, half of the population died in a 2-year period. You have the Black Death, the plague. The plague happened when this was being built. What else happened? During the entire 14th century, you don't have national monarchies like England and France. You've got cities which run their own countries, fight each other. So for the entire 14th century, Florence was at war with Pisa, with Siena. So constant warfare while you're building this. And I think that it's a mini ice age, and I think I'm trying to give an idea of what you've overcome to build what was the biggest church in the world. And maybe that's why it's not finished yet. Underneath the red tiles of the dome, there's a bare stone area that's obviously not finished. They wanted to crown that with a walkway, many columns and arches. Michelangelo looked at what had been started. Michelangelo looked at it and said, I don't like it. He always says that. He said, that looks like a bird cage, the cage of a bird. Work stopped and never started again. Never got finished because of Michelangelo. Underneath the round, a bit further down, underneath the round windows, semicircular bit sticking out, niches in there. You should have had statues in each one of the niches. There's not even one. So that's not finished. Michelangelo spent 3 years right behind here making his most famous statue, the David, to be seen up there. After 3 years of work, they decided it would look better somewhere else, and it ended up at the end of this street. I'll be talking more about it later. In the meantime, the moral of the story is this is not finished yet. They only finished the front of the church, 19th century. Inside is bare, simple, austere. It hasn't been finished yet. This is still a work in progress, and it's not even the most important building here. That building is. So in front of the cathedral, as in Pisa, you have a baptistry. You had to be baptized, initiated into Christianity before you could go inside a cathedral. That's where you became a citizen. It may originally have been, there may have been a Roman building, Temple of Mars, the god of war there. And so linked with the Renaissance is past. The most important thing in Florence on this square is on that building, not the cathedral. So let's go see the most important thing. I have to come back in 2 years' time and see this. But in the meantime, you can see a little bit of the most famous thing in the square. Those golden gates are the most, those bronze gates with gold plating are the most famous thing in the square. They're mainly famous because Michelangelo said something nice about them, which is unusual. Michelangelo said these are fit to be the gates of paradise, nice enough to be the gates of heaven. They're normally known as the gates of paradise. They're famous for another reason. Right in the middle, you can see 2 bald heads sticking out of the doors. The 2 bald men are artists. The artist on the left-hand side is Lorenzo Ghiberti, who spent 27 years with a workshop making these doors, inventing some of the effects you get inside. 27 years to make these doors. He'd already spent 21 years making the set of doors around the corner. The doors around the corner are Gothic. The ones in front of you are Renaissance. These are famous because you're seeing the birth of the Renaissance in the visual arts. To sum that up, Around the corner, you really notice the framework is as important as what's inside. Line and decoration. Here you don't even notice the framework because in the Renaissance, the frame becomes a window on the real world. They've just invented a way of showing real three-dimensional space. Now what's important is real people, humanism, the human person, a man-centered universe, inside real space, the real world. The real world can be made better, so you've got the modern idea of progress. In a lot of ways, this sums up the changes that are typical of the Renaissance and the break with the Middle Ages. But these doors are also stories from the Jewish Bible, so they start at the very top left-hand side, which you can't see, so I'm going to start 2 down left-hand side with stories of Noah. The most important thing about Noah is that he saved the animals from the universal flood, but you can't see that in the background. So the other important thing about Noah is that he invented wine. So for Italians, it's very important that he invented wine, which is why he's drunk on the left-hand side underneath a wine barrel. Right-hand side on the hill, you can see Abraham sacrificing his son. Down to the left-hand side on the right, you'll find Jacob fooling his blind father. On the right-hand side between the hills, there's Joseph being sold into slavery by his brothers. On the left-hand side down, you can just see Moses receiving the 10 Commandments. Right-hand side, you see Joshua blowing his trumpets to break down the walls of Jericho, allowing the Jewish people to enter into Israel. And you can't see any further down than that. So just take my word for it. These are stories from the Jewish Bible, the Old Testament. And so I need to talk about some other famous things behind you. So let me squeeze behind you. On the right. Right, that's not 35 people.
Yeah.
Is everybody here?
You guys are coming.
Right, I forgot to did I forget to mention? I think I forgot to mention before that dome up there is still today the largest stone and brick dome ever built. Did I mention that? Okay, it's usually known as Brunelleschi's dome. It's named after Brunelleschi, father of Renaissance architecture, the person who invented the sense of space. You saw the panels back there. Great architect, great mathematician, and he had lots of problems building that dome. His big problem is that it's a curved structure. You will need a wooden scaffolding resting on the ground, holding everything up until you get to the top. That wooden scaffolding was going to be too expensive, so the town council said, Brunelleschi, please do something. What did he do? He reinvented architecture and built that dome without any supporting structure resting on the ground. That was self-supporting from the bottom to the top. Population gathered here to listen to the government from underneath this open building. So that was the political podium. At this point, no statues in the square. The statues begin appearing when democracy begins disappearing. So originally not supposed to be statues of government, but the statues begin appearing when the Medici family are beginning to dismantle democracy. And the first, at this point, the most famous statue in this square is David by Michelangelo, right in front of you. The problem is, almost all of the statues around you are originals, but David is an exact copy. Where the original was, why is there a copy? His left hand got broken off, his middle finger was broken off on the right hand, rain destroyed the gold detailing in his hair, somebody scratched their initials on his leg. That's why the original is now inside a museum. But it's an exchange. The reason for the change is that Michelangelo made a couple of mistakes. David is a little Jewish shepherd boy who kills the giant Goliath in the Bible. Number one, this David is not Jewish, he's not circumcised. Number two, he's not a little boy. Right. David's always been shown as a little boy to show that only God could help him overcome the giant. The people of Florence have always called this statue the giant. It turned the story upside down because the Renaissance expresses Jewish and Christian ideas through Greek mythology. Michelangelo is looking back at the Greek past. He's chosen one of the most important Greek gods, Apollo, the god of the sun, and he's chosen the Greek ideal of beauty. Socialism with nationalism mixed with it, so National Socialism, authoritarian government, the end of democracy. That was the model the Germans took up, and so naturally Germany and Mussolini's Italy, the fascist Italy, were allies. However, in 1943, the Italians in the Second World War capitulated, gave up, gave themselves over to the Allies, the British, the Americans, the conquered nations, and at this point Germany occupied Italy. That's where the misunderstanding